Speaking of local success stories, joining us live in studio, political analyst Mark Arum, as heard on the Mark Arum Show, and now a featured op-ed writer for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Good morning, Stephen. How are you?
Hey, happy Wednesday.
How did the Lawson survive Ice Storm 2026?
We survived by a thread. Actually, we have two small children, so we went and bought an inflatable bouncy house to put in our garage to watch our kids bounce up and down. That's how we survived Ice-mageddon.
So I've heard of a lot of panic shopping, but I didn't foresee a run on bouncy houses.
The best $150 I bought, hands down. It was great.
Excellent.
Totally recommend it for any parents struggling. And it feels like for parents, right, we've been in this months-long thing where it's like, oh, daycare's out, the holidays, Martin Luther King.
The bouncy house.
Bouncy house.
Fantastic. No, you didn't lose your power and everything was okay?
No, everything was good. So, yeah.
Good. All right, let's start. Obviously, what's been going on in Minneapolis has been the big story for a couple of weeks now. The fatal shooting recently of the registered nurse and the immediate reaction from Trump administration officials, Miller, Kristi Noem, Bovino. Obviously, that shooting, there was a differentiation between that shooting and the good shooting. And we're seeing some Republican congressmen, senators saying this was not appropriate. There was pretty much broad GOP supporting ICE for that first shooting, but not so much on the second shooting. And now the borders are Tom Homan sent to Minneapolis. Noem is out. Bovino's out of the area. It's a big story, obviously, but with big political implications.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there are a ton of implications, right? One, looking back at this sort of saga unfold, right? We've seen these ICE agents, Border Patrol in these hostile cities where there are Democrat mayors, Democrat-led cities, and that tension has been there for a while. Mm-hmm. I think it was only a matter of time that it boiled over. It's disappointing. Obviously, it's a tragic situation of what happened. I think that's the message that the White House should have sent first. Hey, look, any time that there is a loss of life, it is a tragic situation. We lost an American today. That's unacceptable. We're going to gather the facts. We're going to look to have an investigation to see what happened and get to the bottom of it. They didn't take that tact. Yeah. I think that's backfired on them. I think that this is
an unforced error.
It is an unforced error, and it's a lesson in crisis communications. How you respond really is important. And it's not always being the first to say something outlandish. Yeah. Sometimes it's best to sit back, let the facts play out. I think as those facts have unplayed, they haven't been on the White House's side. And so I think this is a lesson for them, hopefully, that they can take moving forward.
And I think it was highlighted by what happened with this Minneapolis shooting. But I think it's a deeper problem overall is, when we saw Stephen Miller, label this man an assassin, Kristi Noem saying that he was plotting, or Bovino saying he was plotting to murder countless in the immediate. And that's something that you can do if you are an Instagram influencer,
right?
Where you can say whatever you want just to get clicks.
Not that you should.
Exactly. But when you are part of the inner circle of the White House, if you're a presidential advisor, or you're the head of Homeland Security, or you are in charge of Border Patrol, you can't be looking for clicks and being the first to say. You're exactly right. It was an unforced error, and I don't know, because President Trump's first term, he was quick with the "you're fireds," right? But he's been very, I don't want to say loyal, but more steadfast with the second term folks around. So I don't know if Stephen Miller or Kristi Noem have to worry about their job in the second Trump administration, but certainly they're losing their flavor of the month status.
Yeah, look, I think that's absolutely right. And you saw in the president's first administration, there was like an average of a firing a week, right? Yeah. To your point, he's much less apt to do that the second time, because I think he also understands that it feeds into the media's narrative that he is somehow accepting fault, or could play into a loss of momentum for whatever they're working on. I think this situation, to your point, is potentially different. This was an unforced error. This was something that, by all reports, Kristi Noem and or Stephen Miller leaned into without knowing the facts, without having everything on their side, and that may be a boomerang for them, and it may get them in the hot seat. But
And you can do that if you're a Kardashian, or
Right.
but you can't do that if you have an official role in the government. I thought it was telling. Senator John Fetterman, a Democrat from Pennsylvania, wrote a letter to President Trump, and basically said, "Hey, these actions are destroying your amazing legacy on border security." Right, letting President Trump know, like, you're wildly popular with what you've done on the border. Like, there's no one coming in now. And he called it his legacy there, just to highlight, like, don't mess up that legacy with what's going on with ICE. I thought that was very telling. And, in a midterm year, every big story is going to turn political. And so with the big midterm races here in Georgia, we heard immediate reaction from Collins and Carter, basically supporting ICE. Is that a smart move, do you think, to get the folks most likely to vote in the GOP primary to get them stoked to come out and vote?
I think there is a nuance to the message that has to be there, right? We talked about, I believe that the message from the White House in the immediate aftermath of this should have been empathy and leading with, hey, we lost an American today.
Mm-hmm.
We are looking at the facts and we're looking if there's ways to improve this, right? That was not what was said. That was certainly not what was said from these Senate candidates. And I think that's got to be the message. To your point, Mark, the president has received outstanding scores across the board on securing the border and stopping the flow of illegal immigration. That is conflated. That is undercut when things like Minneapolis happen, when things like the shooting happens. It conflates and erodes the support. And I think that's what you're seeing in the polls. His approval rating on border security and immigration is really coming down. And I think that's part and parcel of that. So certainly for these Senate candidates, if they can rile up the base with support of ICE, but can you get, again, those Brian Kemp, Raphael Warnock voters, those 150, 200,000 swing voters in a statewide election with the message of empathy and getting the facts and gathering the facts? That's where you win those people over, and that will be critical, as we know, for Republicans to win in November.
I would imagine Republican candidates, not just here in Georgia, but in purplish areas, they don't want there to be ICE as a driving issue in the election, right? They would rather talk about, let's improve the economy, talk about the peace in the Middle East. They don't want to be seeing ads about ICE coming November. They want everything to calm down, right, and not be a topic of conversation.
Yeah, and to your point, where middle America and when you're getting the biggest swath of voters is, hey, we would like for violent criminals that are here illegally to be deported, but that does not mean we want to see shootings in the street. That does not mean we want to see these mass deportations and roundups. That is and when there's a loss of life, we want our leaders to show empathy. Like there is that nuance there that the vast majority of middle America, including, I would say, independent and swing voters in Georgia are at. That's the message that Republicans really need to be focused on taking here.
Political analyst Stephen Lawson, op-ed author for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Stephen Lawson, joining us in the studio. Great piece on AJC.com about Georgia's investments in infrastructure. This is something that we talk about a lot here on the show. For folks that missed the op-ed, what's your take on why Georgia is so well placed moving forward?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously we've seen tremendous growth to our state, lots of people moving here, companies relocating, but we've seen the strain that some of that growth can cause on our infrastructures, on our roadways, on our bridges. The governor and the General Assembly, leaders in the General Assembly over the past few years have really taken a forward-looking approach to making those investments into our infrastructure. They did about $1.5 billion a couple years ago, and then the governor in his State of the State address last week talked about an additional $2 billion in infrastructure funding, really focusing on express lanes in Henry County, that I-75 bottleneck.
Ugh.
But really, yeah, a huge sigh of relief, right? It's so needed. But again, for our state to be successful, we're going to have to continue making those investments. Obviously, you know about the Port of Savannah.
Yeah.
We have all this cargo growth. We can be the logistics hub of the Southeast. But it's going to take that continued investment, particularly on the congestion side, because we know, as your listeners know, how detrimental that can be, really just to quality of life, but also from an economic perspective.
Yeah. Listen, I understand the economy's tough, right? Grocery prices are up. Deborah, we talked about the latest numbers yesterday. We're waiting to see if the Fed is going to lower interest rates. Cost of living's up. But I think we're somewhat insulated here in the state of Georgia because there are so many other states that are way worse off than we are. We're having surpluses. Yep. Governor Kemp's cutting $2,000 checks. Let me get my bell. To Dr. Maya Aram. The educators are getting, I mean, we really have, beaten the curve when it comes to, economics in the United States. And I hope whoever replaces Governor Kemp keeps it rolling.
Yeah, and the reason we've got those surpluses, again, is because of the steady conservative leadership that we've seen at our state level, both from Governor Kemp, former Governor Deal, and the legislature to prioritize and budget smartly so that we have those surpluses, so that we are able to make those investments in teachers and roads. And that will be critical, as you point out, Mark, moving forward.
All right. Political analyst Stephen Lawson, op-ed writer for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, all things online at Dentons.com. Are you selling merch yet on like quarter zips?
No
Dentons?
merch, but yeah, if the ratings keep going the way they're going, we're gonna get some merch.
Yeah, Shelley Winter, by the way, I don't know if you saw, but he wants you to make him a Shelley Winter quarter zip. I know you're not into apparel making, but
we got to get Mark Aram quarter zips first.
Let's do that. Or as Vinny would say, herd.
Loyalty.
All right. Good to see you, my friend.
You too.
1040.